Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is our day 11 of Python programming playlist, and today we are going to learn about while loop in Python. So while loop, here I have mentioned the syntax of while loop in Python. So we initialize the loop with while, then we provide a condition here I, which should be less than or equal to 100, then we print I, and we increment the value of I with 1. That means we increase the value of I with 1 per iteration. Here we have a condition I should be less than equal to 100, and then we are printing I on line 3. We are incrementing the value of I with 1 or simply adding 1 on each execution or iteration of loop. Increment and decrement. In the code from previous slide, you have saw that we increased the value of I with 1. Similarly, we can decrease the value of I as well. Here increment means adding and decrement means subtracting the value from variable. You can add or subtract any value from your variable. Just like that, we can also add or remove any value. So without any ado, let's get started and let's see this all in action. Hey guys, so we are back in our Visual Studio Code. This is the code from my previous video. If you haven't watched it yet, then I will leave a link in the I button now. And if you haven't watched my playlist, if you haven't accessed my playlist, Python programming playlist, then I will give the link below in the description. Okay, so without any ado, let's start with while loop. Okay, so what we have done here is we have used this for loop in our previous video. I am continuing from that topic. So we have used this for loop to print numbers, to print all the even numbers from 0 to 100, and here we haven't increased the number, that we haven't like increased the number like this, num is equals to num plus 1. So what we are doing here is we are overwriting the value of number or the num variable, and we are increasing the value of number with 1. Okay, so don't be confused, just listen carefully. What we are doing is we are adding 1 to this number, and then we are storing this value again in this number. So we are basically overwriting the num, okay, with num plus 1. So similarly, what we are going to do in our today's topic, which is while loop, we are going to do this, but we haven't done this before. We haven't done this in while loop, for loop. Why we haven't done this? Because for loop takes care of this. The range function automatically generates the number, and with using this for, we are just accessing one element. Okay, we are not increasing value, we are not dealing with any increment or decrement. So what we are basically doing here, that this range function is generating a list of numbers. Okay, so this range function is basically generating the list like 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 like this, and with using this for loop we are just accessing one item for each execution. But in our while loop we are not going to do that. What we are going to do that in this while loop is we are going to create a first of all we will need a number or a variable, just like in our for loop we had num. Okay, so in this while loop let us take I. Okay, so let me first set the value of I, or initialize this I, and set the value of this I to 0. Okay, so for this instance our I is 0. We are starting from 0. Okay, now I am using this while keyword, okay, to initialize my while loop. Then we provide a condition here. So what should be the condition? Okay, my condition is I should be less than 100. Okay, or I should be less than equal to 100. So what I am going to do is I am going to increase the value of I for each iteration. Okay, I will increase the value of I per iteration. Iteration means execution. For first execution the I will be 0, for second I will be 1, and for third I will be 2. Just like that I am going to increase the value of I per iteration or per execution, you can say. Okay, so until and unless the I is less than 100 we are going to do that. If the I is equal to or less than 100, if it is greater than or equal to 100, then our condition is not satisfied, our condition gets false, and hence just like our we have seen that in our conditionals video, that if the condition is false, what will happen, the code in the body of that loop or that statement will not get executed. So just like that, what we are going to do here is we are going to print I. Okay, so we are going to print this I, simply printing this simply by using our print function. Okay, so we will print this I, and then we will increase the value of I. Okay, we will increase the value of I with using this line. Okay, so what is happening on this line 4? Okay, so what is happening is we are overwriting the value of I for each iteration. If we will not do this, okay, without line 4, what will happen, that I will always be 0, and 0 is always less than 100, and hence our loop will get converted into infinite loop. Okay, and what is an infinite loop? Infinite means never ending. The loop will never end, and our program or our application will crash, and this can lead to severe problems in production environment. So we don't want that to happen. So what we want to do is we want to increase I, okay, per iteration. Like for first iteration, so when the loop will begin, in the initial position of loop, the I will be 0. Then for the next line of or you can say for the next execution, for the second execution, the I will get increased with 1. Okay, the I will get incremented by 1, and the value of I will be 1. And then when the value of I will be 1, then I is still less than 100. That means 1 is still less than 100. So the loop will continue. So the I will be incremented by 1 per execution. Like for first execution it will be 1, for second 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. And the point when I will be equal to 100, the loop will stop executing. Okay, the loop will stop its execution. So now with all that said, let us see this all in action. Okay, so as you can see here, we have printed all these numbers starting from 0. If we don't want 0 as initial condition, initial position, in our for loop, what we have done is we provided the values in range function. Here we are not doing that. Okay, here we are setting the value manually. Okay, we are hard coding the value. So now, okay, with using this, with setting I equal to 1, okay, what we are doing is we are starting from 1, and here 1 is always less than or equal to 100. It's not equal to, but it is less than 100. So the loop continues execution. But what if I will add 10,000 here? Do you think that 10,000 is less than equal to 100? No, it's not. So the loop will never execute. Okay, you can see here there is nothing. Okay, why? Because the condition is not met, and hence the loop is not executing. Okay, so just like that we can print the or we can simply print numbers starting from 1 to 100. Okay, with using this while loop. Okay, so now let us do something interesting. So now let us print numbers from 1 to 10. And okay, so what I want to tell you, what is infinite loop? Okay, so we are heading to that topic. What is infinite loop actually? So if we don't provide this condition, okay, so it was 100. So now what do you think, what will happen? Okay, as I is equal to 1, okay, so I is equal to 1, so we have I 1. Okay, so do you think that I is less than equal to 100? Yes, it is. So we will simply print I, again we will print I, again we will print I, again we will print I, because I is not incrementing, I is not changing its value. I is 1 and that's it. It is 1 and 1 only. It is not incrementing, it is not becoming 2, or it is not we haven't increased its value per execution. So what will happen, the value of I will never change, and that's why the value will always be less than 100, and that's why our loop will never stop. Our loop will lead to infinite loop. Okay, so now let me run the program. Okay, so as you can see here, already my VS Code is starting to lag a bit. So you can see our loop is not our loop is not stopping. So let me kill this program first. Okay, so as you can see here, code 1. Okay, what happened here basically, that our program just crashed. Okay, our program didn't crash, like it led to infinite loop, which is a very bad thing. Okay, so just let me check that the recording is still going on. Okay, so let me check. Yeah, it is. Okay, no problem. So what just happened is our while loop never stopped, and we don't want to do this. We don't want this to happen in production environment. For that, we are incrementing the value of I with 1. Okay, you can always increment the value with 2 if you want the step value, like if you want to print the even numbers from 1 to 100, or the odd numbers basically from 1 to 100. What you can do is you can start from 1 and you can go up to 100, and you can increment the value of I with 2. Okay, with using this, what you can do is you can get these values 1, 3, 5, 7, which are odd numbers basically. And that's what we have done so far with for loop. We have done the same thing with for loop. You can do the programs. If you are doing a program in for loop, then there are 90% chances that you can do the same program, you can do the same thing with using while loop. There are two similar approaches, just a bit of difference is there. Like you can do if you are using, we have done the same program in for loop with using just 2 lines of code. And in here what we are doing is we are using while loop, and with 4 lines of code we have achieved the same output. So it's just a matter of approach. You can choose any approach that you feel that it is easier to use. Okay, so if you think this approach is easier for you, then you can go with this. If you think that for loop is much easier for me to understand, then you can go with for loop. So basically you can do that. To print even numbers, what we can do is we can simply start from 0, and then you can see all the even numbers are printed on the terminal. Okay, so just like that you can use while loop, and you can achieve the same output as for loop. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are printing the numbers from 0. Okay, so listen carefully again. We have initialized I is equal to 1. We have defined our variable I, and we have set the value of I to 0. Then we have this condition. Okay, we have initialized, first of all we have initialized our loop with while keyword, and then what we have done is we have provided this I should be less than equal to 100, which is a condition. And until and unless this condition is met, we are looping the code. Okay, so what code do we have? We have this print I, and then so we are basically printing the I first, and then we are incrementing the value of I. Okay, so print first, increment then later, print first, increment later, print first, increment later, just like that. Okay, if I will do like this, if I will switch the lines 3 and 4, then what will happen? I will not see 100 at the end of the loop. What happened here is I can see 102 instead of 100. And why this happened? Because the I incremented first and then I printed I. Okay, so that's why this happened. So I went up to 100. Okay, no problem at all. I went up to 100, but then instead of printing this, what we have done, that we incremented I first and then we printed it later on the terminal. So just like that you can experiment with this. You can experiment a lot, and don't forget to increment or decrement this, because if you won't do that, then your application will crash, your program will crash. It will lead to an infinite loop, which is not something that we want. Okay, so now here is the task for you. Okay, you have to print. First of all, pause the video and think about this, and then come back after some time. Okay, so take 5 to 10 minutes for this program. Okay, spend 10 to 5 minutes and think over it, and try doing it practically. So what you have to do is you have to print numbers from 100, or let's say from 10 to 0, okay, in reverse order. So like 10, then 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and 0. So just like that. So you have to start from 10, and then you have to print numbers from 10 to 0, okay, in reverse order. So just like that you have to do that. So just take some time, and you can always refer this program or this code, but pause the video now, take some time and spend 5 to 10 minutes on this program. So have you tried that? No problem if you haven't. Okay, no problem if you haven't succeeded. So we are going to do that just now. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to print numbers from 10, then 9, then 8, then 7, then 6, then 5, then 4. Okay, just like that. So how we can achieve this output? We have to start from 10. So our starting point is 10. So I is equal to 10. Then with using this while keyword, we are initializing the loop. Then the condition. What's the condition? I should be always greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so I should be greater than or equal to 0 is the condition. And now what we want is we want to print this I, and we want to decrease the I. Okay, I is equals to I minus 1. So what we are doing here is we are decreasing the value of I by 1 per iteration, per execution. Okay, so per execution the value of I will decrease by 1. So now with using this code, we can get this output: 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and 0. So just like that we have printed the numbers from 10 to 0, okay, with using this program. So now one step ahead of this, now let's move ahead. Okay, so up to now we have incremented the value. Okay, we have incremented our I with using this syntax. Okay, so what you can do is you can increase. So now let's again go back to our program where we want to print numbers from 0 to 100. Okay, so I should be less than equal to 100, and now here it should be plus, or else we will lead to infinite loop. Okay, so now what we can do here, with using this syntax you can achieve the same output as well. Then you can also do this, you can also do this I plus equals 1. Okay, so what is happening here is with using this increment operator, what we are doing, we are just simplifying this code. Okay, so when we have this syntax, or the syntax like this, that we are overwriting I with some value. Okay, that means if you have some value, okay, if you have like, let me just comment out all this code. Okay, oops, comment out this code, and now let me show you that if I have a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 1. Okay, so now if I want to increment a, okay, with b, okay, a with b, then what I can do is I can increment a plus equal to b. Okay, so with using this approach, what will happen is it will take a and it will add this b to a, and it will save the value of that. Basically, okay, listen carefully again, it will take a, then it will add b to it, or the value which you have provided here to it, and then it will store the answer of that, or it will store the output of that in this a. It will overwrite this a. Basically, you can simply use this plus, then minus, okay, into, divided by, anything you want. Okay, so just like that you can, what you can do is you can simply increment or decrement the value with using this increment or decrement operators. Okay, so with that said, you can increase the value of I with using this syntax, which is a more cleaner and which is a way in Python with which your program looks more cleaner and more sophisticated. Okay, so with using this, now let's run our code and we get the same output here. Okay, as you can see, from 0 to 100. Okay, so just like that you can increment the value of I with plus equal to. Okay, so just like that. And if you want to decrease the value, okay, if I want to print numbers from 1 to 10, let's say, I should be always greater than equal to 0, and here what I will do is simply I will change this plus to minus. Okay, now let me run the code and you can see this output here. Okay, so this is the same way, okay, exactly similar method, but just two different approaches again. If you like this, then you can use this. If you like the other way, then you can use other, but this approach looks more cleaner to me, so I am going to use this a lot in our program, our future programs, our further videos. So don't be afraid. Okay, practice this again and again. Okay, take help of Python documentation or any websites you feel comfortable with. Okay, so take help from them, read the documentation and all, and simply practicing is the way. Okay, so you need to practice this. Without practice you will not learn anything. You will think I have learned this while loop. Okay, and after 2 days you will forget everything. So just practice this home, okay, at home. And so with that we have successfully completed our while loop. Okay, we have learned how to increment and decrement our variables. How we have learned how to use while loop and how to get the same output, or how to achieve the same output with using while loop and for loop. Okay, so with using for loop you can achieve the same output, with using while loop you can achieve the same output. Okay, so just like that we have learned this. And one more thing which I forgot to tell you, that okay, when we use this while loop, when we use if conditionals, when we use for loop, we leave some spaces here. Okay, these spaces are called as indentation. This indentation is used to make it clear for the compiler or for the Python, okay, interpreter, and for you, that this code belongs to this while loop body. Okay, so this code belongs to the body of this is the body of this while loop. Okay, or this is the body of this for loop. So just like that, this is used, this indentation is used for the, what you can say, to denote that this is the body of this condition, or for of this loop. So this indentation basically is of 4 spaces, and in Visual Studio Code you don't need to manually give the spaces. If you will press the enter, you will automatically get those spaces. So no need to give the spaces manually like this. Okay, so with that said, we have successfully completed our while loop. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, then please subscribe, consider subscribing, share my videos to your friends, and if you like my videos, add a comment below, and I will see you next time. Thank you.